Welcome to The Modern Digital Enterprise, the digital transformation podcast from Anexinet, where we discuss a variety of topics that enterprises grapple with as they modernize and transform their IT and business operations. Today, we are talking about maximizing customer experience with NICE. Joining me on the call today is Ray Hicken, VP of Strategy and Business Development at NICE. Ray, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you, Chris. It's great to be with you this morning.
And Robby Paul, EVP, Contact Center and Collaboration here at Anexinet. How's it going?
Nice to chat with you, Chris and Ray.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. And in order to get us started, Ray, I was wondering if you could just give us a little history on your company, on NICE. What was the process of getting to where we are now? What exactly is CX1?
Great question. Thank you. I'll try to make it brief. It's a great story. Incontact was our company name and founded by our CEO, who is still our CEO, Paul German. Back 20 years ago, we were the first company to go to the cloud with Contact Center. And we've been a pioneer since. And about 4 years ago, NICE acquired what we used to call Incontact. They brought a plethora of experience in the workforce management area, very heavy in the premise space, but very big in the workforce management, workforce optimization. And the marriage of these two companies has been a great story. We've been able to take their platform and move it into the cloud. And now we are probably the leader in the space in that full complex offering in Cloud Contact Center, which we now call CX1. So CX1, now being NICE CX1, is the leader in the space in the Cloud Contact Center and has really a full scope of products to help our contact center customers as they continue to move into this incredible fast, rapid changing world of Cloud Contact Center and the customer experience.
Right. And just for clarity, the CX in CX1 is customer experience, right?
That's correct.
So I like that that's part of the name, and it really does speak to what you were talking about, where it's a lot more than just a 1-800 number. Can you kind of expand a little bit on what that means in terms of how being in the cloud and all these different tools that work together make things more seamless and more convenient for both customers and the companies that utilize the service?
We've seen this transformation of the contact center into the customer experience for a company. It changes the way you interact with your customer, and COVID actually has sped that process up more rapidly, and more people are making decisions about their life and making choices through customer experience. And every company is trying to provide that kind of an experience for an individual so that they'll continue to use them as their choice of company to do business with, whatever that business may be. Maybe verticals like retail, finance, healthcare, you name it. There are a lot of companies that have contact centers, and we're giving them this customer experience that they crave more than ever, which is most companies are actually, who have a contact center, are very focused on that customer experience. In fact, we surveyed several contact center managers and leaders, and they said that was the primary experience that they were worried about. Things like a CSAT score, NPS, or service levels or quality scores were lower on their concern for their business than the customer experience or the feedback score and how they are as a customer. So the customer now has more voice than choice than ever before, and that experience has to be a premium experience from beginning to end before they even hit the contact center, which we'll talk about in a little bit, to that whole experience from completion of service or support that they were looking for. That's what customer experience is really about.
Yeah, Ray, I think it's interesting. I think that if you look back over the last 5 to 6 years, one of the things that a lot of companies have really been struggling with or really grappling with, is maybe a better way to put it, is that an organization's advertising is now discounted. People put more stock in a Google review than they do what your advertising tells them. The younger audiences are much more inclined to buy based on experience, personal experience, and leveraging something like common marketplace information than what you're going to do from an advertising standpoint. And as a result, I think you're going to start seeing the firms like Gartner and Forrester really start to gravitate away from a contact center evaluation and really more a customer experience evaluation, because the tool sets are getting broader and really engaging a broader number of work streams and methodologies of handling a client request. And really the objective is to get hyper personalized. So I want to know that I am, it's not just I'm receiving a call and I figure out, is it Ray who's calling me and why is he calling me? I should know, potentially with the information that I've collected over time, because you're an existing client. If you are an existing client, please use the information that you've got that I've given you to provide me with as personalized an experience as I can, so that you are predictive and prescriptive about what is it that I might be calling about, and really help answer my question before I have to answer it.
Yeah, I guess if you really pull back and look at it, we've gone from being a contact center where you pick up the phone and talk to an agent, you push one or two to talk to somebody, to a world where you may never talk to a person again and have what we call a digital experience where you satisfy that customer's needs that way. And I just think that we're transforming the experience, and companies are very focused on that. We have a new buying pattern by a different group of people who we call, that digital age group that are in their 20s and 30s. They don't have that experience of wanting to pick up a phone call and talk to somebody. They'd rather not talk to anybody. And so they're going to use digital ways to get their questions answered and or make a decision through a customer or a company they're working with as a customer. It's a dramatically different way in which we're doing things.
Yeah, and it seems like this is already, when you have a customer that's calling in, ordinarily it's because they're having some type of a problem, right? So they're already inclined to be a little bit annoyed about product X. When they engage with any of these different services, whether it is a voice call or a chat bot or an SMS, they really are coming in angry, and it becomes doubly important that the customer experience is something that's satisfactory for them, because otherwise you see, like you were saying, instant returns, right? Outrage on Twitter, Google reviews, that sort of thing, which is a much faster turnaround than has ever happened before.
Yeah, possibly. I think it's, there's some statistics that Ray and Nice can quote that kind of talk about, the percentage of people that actually call, or it's actually very small compared to the reason that someone might be out researching your product. So, you're hitting in on a customer service, an inbound customer service approach, assuming that they're calling about something that went wrong. But there's a needs event that happened somewhere along the way that really defined why they're reaching out to begin with and what they're doing. And that needs event could be that I'm researching something on a product that I own that your company manufactured, and I want to know how it works, or I want to do something about that. So really identifying and starting to categorize what are the needs events that someone might start down a path to find your company is really, it's important to start there, and then identify how can we service individual needs events, whether that be through a digital approach, surfacing relevant data to them through a search engine like Google, or presenting information to them through a custom application that your company developed, or ultimately maybe they looked up your telephone number and called. It could also be that they have an order that's being shipped, and wouldn't it be nice if you told them that the order was being shipped and it was going to deliver on X day? There's a wide gamut of reasons that someone may be reaching to you as an organization.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think that the analytics around or the data behind that that Robby was talking about, that customer may, like he said, there's a needs event, it's an order, it's I need to purchase something or I need to schedule something. And what we think the experience is really not what it is. It's only 19% seek an agent for assistance. And some of that assistance is going to go through an IVR or frequent asked question bot as the triage. 81% of them start with a digital first interaction. So they're looking for a search engine, they're looking for a website, they're looking for something proactive to drive that experience that ultimately leads to a resolution through an intelligent self-service experience before it may ever get to an agent at all. And that is a dramatically different journey that people are taking, that we're seeing people take. And that's where we're shifting our whole business practice and strategy as a company and our investment as a company into this area. It's a dramatically changing experience now.
So what are some of the things that happen behind the scenes, whether that's a manual effort or some type of automated response that helps companies build those digital resources? Like, for example, I think that what you just said is a great one, where if you have a frequently asked questions online and somebody can scroll through that, find their answer, they don't need to call, press 0 16 times to talk to a human. They're going to feel better because the answer is right there. But that kind of information is also constantly evolving and needing to be updated. How does the product and the platform deal with those types of things in a changing environment?
Well, it comes down to really managing and maintaining a knowledge base. And NICE really has done a really, really good job of integrating your knowledge base. You can either utilize yours or they actually have their own that you can utilize. Ultimately expose that to Google search crawlers, and you can segment it to have some stuff stay internal and some stuff say external. So if it's appropriate to push to the internet, they can actually take that. And so long as you're cultivating and maintaining your own knowledge base, so you should be doing that anyway, they can surface that information and push it to the top of Google through search engine optimization. All that's included in the same platform, and enable you to kind of really get that information to the fingertips of the user that you want to get it to quickly. So, Ray, do you want to expand on that at all?
I think Robby's probably hit that pretty well. What we're looking at is a part of the thing that we've done is and then one of the benefits of a great company like NICE is we have the capital and ability to go out and acquire companies that help provide that kind of an experience, that knowledge base, that artificial intelligence conversation and the intelligence automation that we're talking about and gathering that. I mean, NICE has been around for many years and they have a huge database of knowledge and they leverage that. And then they've acquired platforms and products and companies that allow us to make the engine work. I think a good example of that is a company we just recently acquired called Contact Engine. And that company is a proactive conversation. What it does is it searches the customer experience before they ever hit a company website. So they have the data, they gather that data, and before the customer even hits that customer's website, they know what their behavior is, what their thought pattern is, the way they move through the internet, and use that as a resource. And then before they even hit the customer's website or use our platform, we know what their pattern is going to be, how they resolve their problems, what they choose to look for answers. And that's changing that through that knowledge base and leveraging then companies or platforms that help facilitate that experience.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is really, if you look at the shift from years, let's say 5, 6, 7 years ago, we're doing everything we can to move from being reactionary and waiting for a client to reach out. So the only proactive stuff historically people have done is really advertising. What we're trying to do now is really be proactive in a variety of manners and putting the right information at the customer's fingertips at the right time through the right medium, right? So don't forget, there's all kinds of different people. I'm 50, I've got college-age kids. They don't really like to talk on the phone like Ray talked about. Text is awesome. You can text them anytime. They're even better if you join Instagram. But, if you start looking around, there's a variety of different methodologies that people choose to communicate and what works best for them. And I think what you want to do is you want to meet your client where they are and how they want to communicate with you. And that's really going to be table stakes moving forward as to how do you manage your customer experience such that you are easy to do business with. And, it's not just, you check the box and you do a good job. I want a raving customer. That's what we're looking for. Not looking for a satisfied customer. Satisfied is okay, but a raving customer is one that's going to multiply your brand.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And you also touched on something that I would love to talk about, which is repeat conversations. If a customer calls in more than one time, or if a customer has to be transferred from one technician to another. One thing that's an incredible frustration that people talk about all the time, if you call into any random tech support line, you get transferred to engineering, you have to tell them the whole story over again, as if, the introduction conversation never happened. Can you talk a little bit about some of the strategies and tools that are in place that make, streamline those types of conversations so that customers have a more satisfactory experience?
Yeah, before we even get there, you got to understand kind of the what that's a byproduct of. So a lot of people have really raced to make some sort of change and to embrace digital first. And they did so in a siloed fashion. So what that means is they may have implemented some sort of IVR application or, a chat application, whatever it is. And it's a standalone chat application that doesn't really have any true integration to their contact center. So what ends up happening is you end up with a siloed conversation over chat. Well, statistically, 30 to 40% of those chat sessions end up requiring some level of customer interaction over a different medium. So what you end up having, so what you're describing is the scenario where they have a siloed application for chat or for, an IVR as an example. And I've decided this isn't working for me. I need to talk to a live agent, and I either zero out or I ask to talk to someone. In the siloed application, you'll see call our 800 number. Awesome. So I call my 800 number. I have to re-authenticate. I have to, re-explain what I'm asking about because there's no integration between them. So that's really a function of, I'd say largely, I don't want to say it's only this, but I think the statistics are right around 80% of call centers are still on premise and have not really engaged in a fully integrated cloud-based application stack. So they've got kind of mix and match type stuff that doesn't integrate well. So when you move forward with a platform like CX1, one of the things that's really nice about it is it's fully integrated. So do they have, chat, email, SMS, voice? Yes, all of them. But you can context switch from one to the other, operate out of both at the same time, potentially, if that's, what you need, without losing the context of the conversation. And that's really, to your point, that's probably one of the most frustrating things that you can deal with. And, aside from sitting on hold for an extended period of time, repeating myself is one of the things that it just sincerely frustrates me. And it really demonstrates that company has not spent a whole lot of time understanding what can we do to do a better job servicing my customer.
Yeah, I think what Robby's describing there is the difference between a multi-channel platform, an experience, and an omni-channel. So we can support in our platform 30 different channels: voice, chat, SMS, social media like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all at one time. And when you have a siloed experience, when the customer comes into the platform and they have to either drop out because they're moving from I'm at home working and then I'm going to get in my car and I want to move to a different medium by which I want to communicate because I can't be on the phone anymore. I want to stay with that stream of experience with that whoever I'm working with or whatever I'm working with and still maintain that whole experience from cradle to grave. And they may change platforms several times in their experience by which they're operating in their day. And yet we still want to maintain that experience that they're having across the seamless experience. That's an omni-channel experience versus I go in, I do a chat, and I'm out, and I have to call back in, and I'm almost starting all over again. Or I hit them through WhatsApp or whatever, and then I'm starting over again. And you want to give them this seamless experience. So that's why we've been able to take like 30 different channels at once and have them interact based on the customer's needs and their preference about how they want to communicate with that company.
And what about long term? Like if I'm a customer and I had a problem 6 months ago, got it resolved in whatever manner, but now I'm calling back about something completely unrelated. Does the system remember that type of thing? Is there information that is gathered from old tickets and recognizing that this customer is the same customer, that type of thing?
Yeah, you're kind of blending into your CRM or your service desk technology. So there's tight integration available independent of what your service desk is that you utilize or what your CRM is. So ultimately, the answer is yes, it's all captured and collected, but it would be posted to a system of record internally that you would utilize for that. But, kind of calling statistics, anything around kind of intent, things like that are all captured inside the CX1 system. They have rich data analytics that enable you to really kind of evaluate what's happening and, where did an interaction start? As an example, did it start digitally and finish in voice? Things along that lines, you can actually report on all of that. So there's very rich reporting available, but I'm not sure if that answers your question.
And that has become more and more, a much more significant part of the contact center experience, not for the company who's building out their contact center. What used to be the driver, maybe 10 years ago, maybe workforce management, how you manage your workforce within your contact center, to now, because of that data that we're gathering and big data that we talk about when you think about stories of Zuckerberg and Facebook and the data that he carries and has, that's what these CRMs do. And they become an integral part of that whole decision that a company makes around their customer experience, because that's the the data that leverages the information that they can come back immediately and pick up right where they left off in that experience that they were having before they exited their interaction with that particular company. So the CRM, the databases that they're used, the electronic record programs that they're using become more and more critical in the whole decision, in the whole experience than ever before. And that's why you see such a vast increase in companies like Microsoft and Salesforce and their engagement, and all, the Zendesk of the world, all the companies like that are critical now to the experience and how you integrate into that with your platform as a part of the experience.
So do you think that that's, if we're talking about some vocabulary terms, that's the idea behind omnichannel, is that all of these things work together seamlessly and continuously, rather than being, like Robby was saying earlier, rather than them just being siloed and being independent of one another. And it's just a handoff where somebody says, here's a customer, good luck. In this case, with omnichannel, the system and everybody that is a technician on the system has access to all of that information, the predictive stuff, the historical stuff, in order to speak to the customer or communicate with the customer in a way that they're going to feel heard and they're going to feel like they're being taken seriously.
That's exactly right. In the customer experience, Forrester's research said that 67% of people have a bad experience with a customer, with a company, when they're using these platforms. Why can't I see my information? Why can't you provide me that information? Why can't you resolve this quickly? And the integration into the systems that are managing the experience, are very siloed in their data. So the whole goal is to seamlessly pull all this together into one experience. And that requires a platform that can take all those siloed data points, which is, the web analytics and the social media and the mobile experience, and pull that data through the CRM or the database that they're using to gather this information into one seamless experience for them, so that you can have that type of experience. So you're not having 67% of the people, that's a high percentage, are having a bad experience when they call into a company or they reach to a company.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is in service of the idea of making those kinds of communications better for everyone involved, right? In thinking about customer experience, one of the things that comes to mind is, like, if you have a problem and you have to call company X, how do you feel about that call? Do you feel dread? Do you feel concern? Or do you feel like they're going to be able to help me with my problem? It's a significant differentiator in how those calls are being handled by the company and the system that they use to handle those calls.
Yep, agreed. Yes.
In terms of the back office type of stuff, one phrase that comes up a lot in any type of computer or technology story these days is artificial intelligence. Can you talk a little bit about what that means in terms of this platform, how I what it is used for to make these types of experiences better for customers?
I'll first say, and then Robby can add whatever he wants to add here. I always like to point to data and research. The contact center experience, even in the last few years, if you were to ask a company if they introduced artificial intelligence or this gathering information into the contact center, only 23% of them have done it. Even though it's there, they're not making that move that quickly. And then you ask them when it was introduced, 73% of them have just introduced it in the last year, and only 27% in the last 2 years. So this is really cutting edge on the frontier of what we're using, what we call artificial intelligence, to change that experience for the customer. And I think that's a really important, those data points, that those are the things that are needing to drive the experience. And most of these companies they don't even know how to utilize what they do have. And that's a significant part of that whole, helping a customer make that shift to the right platform, is helping them take and accelerate the use of the product that they have in hand. They just don't know how to do that. And that's part of what we should be doing. And that's what we should be doing with our partners, is helping these customers make that shift to using artificial intelligence that as a gathering point of the data that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's important so artificial intelligence is in my opinion, it's much like the word cloud. It carries a certain connotation, and not everybody understands what it means. So Robby's definition of cloud is there really is no cloud. It's just someone else's computer, right? There's still a computer somewhere that's sitting in a data center somewhere, right? Very similarly, artificial intelligence, I think people have watched The Matrix and all kinds of fun, scientific, type movies that, posit the idea that there is this AI that just sits back there and does everything on its own. That's not the reality of it. What it is it's an inference engine that has been built and trained and tuned to recognize patterns and suggest activity or action based on those. So first and foremost, understand what AI is. Now, put that aside for a minute. To Ray's point, we've had sentiment analysis as an example in contact center for a decade, and very few people have ever really moved to utilize it. I think where we're going to find people start to adopt it. So the first place, in my opinion, that's probably the most obvious is in intelligent QA calls, where we're starting to be, so historically someone would take a percentage of the calls that they record. So anytime you call someone, they say that they're recording your call for quality purposes, right? And functionally what that does is they say, we're going to record all the calls and we're going to sample a percentage of them, 2 to 10% typically, probably not much more than that. And that literally means that someone's going to listen to the call, or if they're advanced, watch the call in conjunction with a screen record and find out how well the agent did or didn't do. Not terribly scientific into how they chose the call. It's literally a random sampling, which is historically what you would want to do to get a relevant sample. The problem is that doesn't necessarily surface the problems that you're looking for. So what was introduced, the traditional NICE organization that bought CX1, they brought out sentiment analysis that essentially said, hey, we can tell you whether the client was upset or happy, were they speaking loud or quickly, things like that, to identify whether or not the client was upset or not. And then kind of took that a step forward. I think where we want to be able to get, and we can get now, is we can do kind of word spotting and look for certain trends and words and say, I want to focus on all calls that said the word cancel, so that we're able to dial in and get more specific into what we're actually kind of doing a QA check against. So that's applied intelligence, and you could call it artificial intelligence. But again, I think it's an inference engine that's really taking and saying, I recognize that word, and we're going to surface that as a possible thing. Now, where we're headed and what people really want to talk about is next best action. And it's, where we're able, because you can record and do a live transcription of calls now. The real question is, can we take a live transcription of calls and in real time listen to that and suggest a next best action, and possibly do that without any agent interaction? Again, that's going to require two things. One is a really well-tuned inference engine, and a pretty extraordinary amount of processing power. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing this kind of show up in small, limited use cases. And as CPU processing power comes down in price and bandwidth increases, which both of those will continue to happen based on Moore's law, I think you're going to continue to see that. So I think where things are going to go is we'll continue to get better and better at this, and really kind of understanding that, Chris said, I like blue. Well, let me surface I'm going to show you all the blue things that we've got. Now, that's a stupid example, but you get the point. That kind of give you a sense. That's just my opinion. I think that's where we're going to be headed. I don't think that, I've heard some people suggest that we won't have any live agents by the year 2030. I don't believe that. I think that we're still going to have people who need to call, and you're going to have I think what you'll see is a continued increase in digital interaction. I think voice will probably taper down, but I don't think it's going to disappear.
Yeah, I would agree. I still think there's going to be a need for voice, because at some point, some of these experiences can't be resolved without having that type of an interaction. I think you'll see more and more the interactions go to a digital experience and resolve itself, but you'll always need that live interaction to resolve some of these experiences. And when you talk about AI, there's different things that are driving that. It's, there's the machine learning, there's the natural language processing. Machine learning is like understanding, the input from data that you're gathering from the interaction that the experience that people are having, versus natural language it's just really actually grabbing onto things, that words or phrases that people say, that lead you to a path that takes a customer to a different place in their roadmap experience to resolution to their problem or to a decision or a buying decision. And then you're taking that experience and you're even able to gather sentiment around, like, even if they're elevating their voice, that leads to a different experience. And they actually, these companies can, that with the products that we have, and a product called Mattersight that a company we acquired, we actually are measuring the voice tonality, and it can shift it to immediately, to your point, Robby, I need to talking to a machine is not going to help me anymore. I've got to get a live person who can escalate this thing or de-escalate the experience based on that person's tonality, either words they use or the raise of their voice and their pitch of their voice. That's really getting deep into an AI experience, but that's what that is all about.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially since if we're talking about purely digital communications, whether that's people doing Google searches or some type of a chatbot or SMS, I have to assume that the scale of the amount of interactions is so much higher when it comes to those types of things. It really just becomes impractical at a certain point for human beings to be the only arbiters of what's going on. So creating an engine that is based upon inference, like Robby was saying, makes a lot of sense, because then that helps utilize what computers are really good at, which is very fast processing of a lot of data in a short period of time, creating information and insights that you can understand, and then tweak the message that you are putting out into the world, so that when people do have times that they have to call in, you're continually updating what you're saying based on what they're saying. And it becomes kind of a symbiotic conversation in a way that is much more direct than taking 5% of the calls and just saying, oh, well, this person said X, Y, and Z. They are obviously representative of all of our audience. By using these types of AI tools, you can actually get the opinion of the entire audience.
Yes, agreed. That's right.
So that's the customer side. And in terms of customer in this place, I know it's really complicated to say customer in this situation, but people that are calling in with problems about product X, it seems like there's a lot of ways that can benefit them. What can CS1 do to benefit the business that is using it as a call center or as a communication platform? Aside from happy customers, how does it help with these types of things? Evaluation, improvement, removing the onus of doing the computations, those types of things.
I think by using the platform the way it's designed and all these things that we've just defined as the experience, it allows a company to, one, you don't need as many agents to start with. You still will need them, but you won't need as many because some of these are resolved before you even get to an agent. So there's a cost savings there. And two, when you get in gathering that data, it allows you to make better decisions about how you're approaching your customer, which is in many ways that's a buying experience, which is profitability to the company, and you're continually improving your experience in operation based on the data you're gathering. Many decisions are being made now based on the data you gather from your customer experience, and then you also are using that information to go feedback and make sure your agents are more prepared for real-time, faster personalized interactions. And that changes the effectiveness of that agent in their role. So all this stuff leads to a continuous loop of improving the experience, the performance of your platform, as well as the people using the platform and interacting in the platform, to cost savings and or cost reduction and or enhanced revenue, because we've seen a pattern in the way we are doing business that we need to change the way we approach our business with the customer based on these interactions, the information we're gathering. It's really a cyclical continued improvement experience for a company in using this data and the platform to improve that outcome, which, as you know, a company is concerned about that bottom line and at their revenue and growth as a company. And that customer experience leads to that outcome.
Yeah, I think just to kind of put that in a nice tidy bow, if the CEO's primary responsibilities are to increase revenues and profit, decrease risk, and manage the image of the organization, if those are two of the primary ones, I mean, ultimately, if you are attacking your customer experience and making sure it's as positive as you can, number one, if you are utilizing a platform to really record, QA your calls and do a good job of doing that and doing it in a targeted fashion. And you're collecting the information that you need and routing the call to the appropriate person the first time, or the interaction to the appropriate person to the first time, or presenting the information to your customer before they even know what they're asking for. All of those things are going to lend themselves to increased sales. And, and again, Ray talked about the cost avoidance. There's several, kind of modules inside the application around workforce efficiency modeling, and, kind of reduction in how long does it take to handle a time. All those things go into targeted buckets that you can utilize to really accomplish the overlying top level objective to increase revenue and profits and decrease risk.
One other question I would have in terms of install base and the experiences that companies have deploying the product. Have you seen a dramatic shift over the past, 18 months as we've dealt with the pandemic and whatnot? And there has been a huge change between companies that were previously primarily on-prem into hybrid and even 100% remote work forces. Has that changed the way that you approach the market, the product? Has that changed the way that your customers are asking for different things?
I think a lot of people got caught flat-footed, a year and a half ago, for sure. And they band-aided something together, and they put it together as best they could. And now they're trying to figure it out. And again, I think I referenced it earlier, about 20% of people are, a true cloud-based application. It's not to say that you can't do work from home with a premise-based application, by the way. You can. It is considerably more difficult. And there's, some other ancillary issues that are simplified in a cloud-based delivery model. But I think what's happened is we're seeing it's both rapid adoption, but it's rapid acceptance in larger scale organizations that historically may have been either a technology laggard or, more cautious. Even cautious industries are, dipping their toe into it in a large way. So, we're seeing very large financial institutions, as an example, kind of look at utilization of a cloud-based technology to kind of leverage themselves out of their premise-based technology debt and move forward with something that's going to better enable them to handle their client in a post-pandemic space where, candidly, it's hard to find people. I mean, I think that's probably one of the larger trends that we're seeing right now is that, you got people who don't want to work. Those that don't want to come into an office. So you best be prepared to work from home and still be able to provide all the same, data and analytics around those interactions once they're at home. And I think that's a lot of times what I'm seeing is someone did effectively move their workforce off premise. But when they did so, they did it in a disjointed fashion, so they're losing some of the efficacy of the data analytics that you might get otherwise through an integrated application approach. So I don't know if Ray, if you have a different perspective than I do working at CX1. So what's your perspective?
Yeah, well, I mean, just our business alone over the pandemic has changed. Many companies that would say to us, yeah, we're on a prem solution and we'll, I guess, walk that out over the next 5 years and move to the cloud. And all of a sudden we had this massive change. And analysts did a report that I guess tells the story best. They were saying that the industry right now is about $7.5 billion. And by 2025, it'll be $23 billion. The same analysts went back and did a retake on their data they were gathering. And now the story is by 2025, $65 billion industry in cloud contact center versus $23 billion. That's how rapidly companies are moving off of premise solutions, and having to, because the world is not going to go back to the way we were. And that's evident even in our own company, people working in an office, and we have many people who are not going to come back to the office, and we have to accommodate that. And the platforms have to accommodate that change too. And so that's definitely where it's exploding.
So we're coming up to the end of our time here. I'll give both of you an opportunity if there's anything that we didn't discuss that we should have mentioned or any final thoughts. Robby, I'll start with you.
No, I think we covered a lot of ground. First of all, I'd just say thanks to Ray. Nice 61 is a fantastic partner. We've worked with them for many, many years. And, we do so because they have a tremendous platform that, when you get it installed, it really solves a lot of the problems that the client is looking for. Now, I will say this, you can rush out to install anything if you do so without, starting with, a strategy engagement to understand what is it I'm trying to accomplish. I think that, it's sort of like setting out on a road trip and not knowing where you're going to go. You really may or may not hit your destination. So I think that the advice that I've got for people that I give constantly is understand you need to map out 2 data points. And it really kind of equates to what your environment looks like today. It's really a common assessment of your overall technology platform and your operational maturity. And where do you need to be? What are you trying to solve for long term? Not everybody has the same objectives, and plotting out those 2 points allows you to create tactical steps along the way to achieve that strategy. So, if I had a parting thought, it's, just be careful not to rush to a new solution. What you really want to do is plan out what it is you're trying to accomplish and make your way through that. So that'd be my parting thought.
Yeah, and I wholly support what Robby just said, and I think just my parting comment would be, CX1 has been and will continue to be a leader in the space. That allows us to, in my opinion, allows us to have a seat at the table as you make these complex decisions. But with the platform the way it is designed and what we continue to do with the platform, we are giving the customer experience that is very unique, as we've described here, to not only the big 8,000 seat call center and the big, Fortune 100 companies, to that small company who has the need to feel and move and act and look as big and powerful as that big company that's in the top quadrant of the companies in the world. They can be realized as having a very inclusive and effective platform to take care of their customer experience, and they have the ability to do that with a cloud platform. And so we help that 20-seat call center up to hundreds of thousands of seats, and that's a great story for any company who's trying to make their way in this new world.
Well, this has been very educational. I appreciate it. Ray, Robby, thank you both for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Ray, thanks as always. Great to talk to you again.
You as well, Robby and Chris. Thank you. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate the opportunity to do this.
All right. Take care, guys.